we have different perspectives on what leadership looks like. I just want to see, okay, hey, how is this transition happening? I look at it like as a relay. The baby boomers, they like, yo, we getting out, but now you got to hand that baton off between the Gen Xers and the Millennials and the Gen Z, and where are the gaps? I was like, look, I'm trying to do the show. Want to have it, bridge the gap, Millennials, Gen Z with Gen X and baby boomers, talk about leadership, have great guests on. You're going to be the host. Send it to you. I was like, what you think? Let's do it. So when do I need to show up? Tell me what guests you want. I know so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. Like, come on, Drew, I got you. Like, well, all right. So we need to, just like you were talking about student body president, you went right back to that mode. You were like, all right, what we got to do about this?
You have to move beyond just being an individual contributor. You have to start elevating out of that where you have a greater understanding of what's going on at the organization at a whole. What's happening with talent development and retention, what's happening with a technology. Like all of these things all play. It's like a Rubik's Cube. And the CEO is always trying to play with this Rubik's Cube to keep all the colors on the same side. But if you're only focusing on being one side of the color, you just getting spun around on that Rubik's Cube and don't know what's going on.
The demonstrations always be having me gone. We just wrapped up the episode with Karan Duncan, which was a lot of fun, but one thing we touched on was like that work-life balance and being fluid. The other kind of like follow-up question I didn't ask in the moment was like the full cost. Like, what does it cost to accomplish that goal? Like he mentioned, like taking ownership, taking on projects that are outside your 9-to-5, like job description, all that. Like, I'm just wondering, like when people think about leadership, if they A, fully know the cost that it takes, and then B, are they willing to fully pay it? Like, and so for you, I'm just curious, like when you set out to be an entrepreneur, a co-founder, a keynote speaker, like, did you know, were you fully aware of like what it would cost? And like, did you have to adapt to?
I didn't know what it was going to cost. You ain't thinking, I wasn't thinking about what it's going to cost me. And what's funny about the entrepreneurship journey for me, it was nothing that I set out to do. It was nothing that I was like, yeah, I'm going to be an entrepreneur because I am, this kind of comes full circle, but it's just like, I've always been the talent, and it's different to be an entrepreneur or a service provider or a solopreneur when you're an actor or a singer or a model or, an artist in that talent space, right? Like truly being like talent. I get hired so that I could be the mouthpiece.
Yeah.
So I found myself in entrepreneurship because as a starving artist or as an actress, an aspiring actress auditioning, I had to gig over here. I had, like in the early years when I was becoming an actress or when I was trying to be an actress, they ain't have Uber, you know what I'm saying? So I was doing other things, trying to figure out how I'm gonna make this money, while I pursue my dream, not knowing that those were the early parts of, the get it in the space of entrepreneurship. It wasn't until like I was like, okay, I got a talent. Now how do I make this a skill? Maybe I can turn this into a skill. And maybe that could be my side hustle while I'm still going for this acting thing. And then that turned into, presenting and public speaking, coaching, and then it turned into a whole nother thing. That's not what I anticipated. I never thought that I'd be a public speaking coach. I was trying to be an actress. Yeah, I was like, Broadway.
It's crazy how that works.
Here I come. That was real short-lived. I think I probably was like actively auditioning till I was probably like 26, 27. And then I was tired of people telling me no.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, well, what happens if I just tell myself yes and started creating opportunities for myself? And that's where entrepreneurship kind of started to kind of materialize. Yeah. But I didn't have an ambition to be like, I want to be an entrepreneur because I had never really dealt with the oppression of a 9-to-5 to then want to long for freedom. I was just kind of always hustling. So
I feel you on that. So man, let's talk about like, what year was it? Maybe 2022. Like, I see some press releases about like these two Black chicks in Houston, like getting accepted into this ION program.
You saw that?
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, all right, let me see what this about. And I think I actually may have saw you and Krista like maybe when y'all were doing y'all's tour of the co-working space.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so when I first came, we met at the ION co-working space in Houston. I used to always sit on the other side of that wall.
Right. That was your spot.
that was my spot. And I I did it for intentionally.
See everybody?
See everybody. I was like, yo, like, I'm trying to figure this stuff out. Like, I don't know nobody. I've been the type, I was a head down engineer in the corner, go to work, punch in, punch out. Now I was like, okay, I want to learn more about entrepreneurship, see if this is something I really want to pursue, and then learn what's happening in the ecosystem. And so I was like, I need to see everybody that comes in that door. I need to say, hey, what's up? I need to do the head nod to all the brothers and the sisters. And I need to be like, you know, hey, what you working on? Like, and then over time, it was meeting people like Philip and Gordon and you and Krista and Daryl and Devon, all these people. I was like, okay, you just learn little nuggets. But going back to you, it was like, okay, like you could tell like, okay, hey, y'all got something going on with Speak House at the time. And I just always kind of made a mental, note of like, okay, hey, this person does this. And your superpower to me was always, the public speaking, the keynote, the communication skills. Mm-hmm. Fast forward to where we're at now in 2025, I was just like, look, like, I think I've squeezed every ounce of talent out of my body. I've used every gift that God has given me, but now I got to find the right people to collaborate with. And I was like, there's some content, some stories, some people that I really want to spotlight and introduce to the world, or reintroduce to the world. And that you were top of mind. And I was like, yo, let's have these conversations together like this, but then also let's have guests come on and talk about, their skill set, their journey into leadership. I think there's like the old guard or the old head way of, leadership and working in corporate and what that looks like. And then you got these millennials, these Gen Zs, and then the next generation, whatever that is. And they're like, no, we want a little bit more, something different, something that works more for us, and is more valuable for us in the way we view our life and want to live our life. Yeah. So long story short, that was kind of my like brief background or like origin story of like from my perspective of how we got here. But yeah, no, I was just like, yo, if nobody better that I know that could like host this show. So I was like, yo, let's make it happen. And you were on board. So
look, I when you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember that very same story that you're sharing is you were always sitting right there. And then my memory is, I'm claiming that my memory strengthens as I get older, but I will forget what you told me. I don't know what that's about, but I don't know if it's just because I'm so much in the moment, but it's like I have to hear things. And I think it's also because I have a good short-term memory. You asked me to memorize something real quick, and I can hold on to that.
That is very true.
For a quick period of time, and then I let go of it.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm constantly creating these space, but over time, us co-working here is just putting together the pieces of who you are. Mm-hmm. One, always there was a bit of an enigma of like, now what is it that he actually does? And I had to ask you today. So what you do over there with the 9 to 5 again? Tell me that. I'm gonna remember this time.
All right. I'm gonna hold you to it. Next time I'm gonna ask you what I do. That's gonna be the first question.
I know what it is now. Okay.
All right.
So I was always kind of piecing it together, but then always kind of wondering what does it mean in total, right? Mm-hmm. Like, okay, so how might I be able to support, or how might we be able to collaborate? Like I'm hearing something. And then I anchored in on the recruiting aspect of what you were doing. And then I knew that you had the, no jobs, or no experience jobs, it was .com?
Yeah, .io.
.io. And I was like, yo, that is so dope, because I think about the song by Common where he would be like, how am I going to get ID without ID?
I got you.
And I feel like that's how people be feeling with jobs. It's like, how am I supposed to get it? I ain't got no experience unless you give me some experience, So you're overcoming that hurdle for people. And so I always thought that was cool. And then learning about your podcasting. And for me, that's where it really kind of resonated, because I find podcasting to be a powerful tool in building relationships.
100%.
And I know that everybody wants to be seen and everybody wants to be heard.
Yeah.
But in that being seen and heard, it could also mean value for the people who are seeing and hearing. Mm-hmm. So it's a natural, reciprocal type of relationship, mutually beneficial relationship, that if you want to be seen and heard, I need to hear what it is that you have to say, and vice versa. Then we should always be talking, and then in addition to that, how you were leveraging that relationship building tool with the podcast to then pour into no experience jobs. And to me, that spoke to me because it was like, that's a natural way of building, and I could get with that. And I've always wanted to do a podcast, even though I kind of did a podcast way back in the day before this format became the podcasting format. But I knew that there was always something that was going to be like, I'm gonna get it together. And I can remember time and time, you'd be like, so what's up with the podcast?
I was just thinking about that. 'Cause like every time I would see you, I'd be like, yo, because, it's like, when you see somebody and you see the thing that they need to be doing and you see like who they are, but they be like, I know, but I'm busy or I don't see it.
And
like,
I'm gonna get there. And I kept telling you, I was like, bro, trust me.
I was like,
it's in there. It's there. But
I'm trying not to say what I want to say, but I'm
I
like,
know, you will stop playing. Right,
come on.
Well, what did you want to say?
No, I ain't gonna say that. Because look, I'm trying to, get some bills paid. But I was like, sister, come on, like, you got it. And I was like, you and Krista both. But I was like, y'all whole thing is communication. I was like, this is the best thing because whoever you bring on the show. So like my philosophy on the podcasting, there's two different ways to look at it. The first way I don't think you should even bother with. Like, if you're just solely looking at it, you're an exception to this, but if you're just solely looking at it from like, I want to be a content creator, I want to be a Kai Cenat or whoever, I don't encourage people to go that way unless you got a very specific like network and plan in place to do it successfully. But what I do think is like, whatever you want to do in life, I think you can use the podcast to leverage and help you get there. And a lot of it is all network based. Like when I say I was a head down engineer, like took my ass to work, took my ass home. Like I would every so often get involved with like volunteering type stuff, but I wasn't really networking in the halls of, GM or Rice or whatever. So the podcast was a way for me there was no other way I was going to be able to sit down and literally have a conversation with a director or a VP or a CIO, a CTO from just not even knowing them. This is a cheat code.
So did you see somebody else doing a podcast? Like what kind of transpired for you to say, oh, that can be my avenue to have these conversations with these decision makers?
So I didn't have that mindset originally. Originally, it was more so like philanthropic in nature. It was like, okay, hey, like Fox News is out there and they took Trayvon Martin from being like this innocent boy to this, drug head that probably was going to die anyway. George Floyd, they did the same thing. Like whatever the case is, whatever you believe, I just realized the power of media and how they can change and frame your perspective. And after the George Floyd incident, I was like, okay, hey, there's a lot of people that can go their whole life not ever meeting a black person, a Latino person. And that's just their community, their relationships. That's just the way it is, depending on where they're growing up in America specifically. And so I was like, hey, let me just put out positive images of black and Latino people so that next time something like this does happen where a black person, a black woman is getting murdered, we can at least have a sense of doubt if the mainstream media tells us, hey, yeah, this person was no good. They were like, black people, they just rob you, hit you over the head.
Giving more access to those who might not have, providing access to those who wouldn't have access to see black people.
Exactly that. And the kind of black people that they may not necessarily think exist.
Yeah,
because what they're probably more familiar with is, the entertainment industry. But no, what about the black people that are in corporate and they just like you? They got a wife, they got kids, they got a husband, they live in the suburbs, they live in the city, whatever. They got a job, they're engineer, they're IT, they're cybersecurity. Let me just introduce you to those people. Somebody that is just like you, but skin color, their hue is just different than yours.
So then if you use the example of, right, like, so now you go from head down engineer to also aspiring to have conversations with decision makers. And then podcasting comes in here. And then you're looking at it also as being able to storytell and shape narratives.
Exactly.
How does that now support what you're doing with podcasting and like leadership and recruiting? Like with all of that, you got leadership and recruiting. Now I can see, tell me more about that.
That's a good question. So the philanthropic idea was the foundation. And I just eventually kind of had like an aha moment. Like overall, like this equipment wasn't here. First of all, like I was shooting everything
This
with.
nice equipment, y'all.
I appreciate it, but
I appreciate it.
but yeah, I was just shooting with my iPhone. But like even with that, like everything costs money, and so I was like, okay, I got to find a way to like monetize this. Like this is a cute hobby, like you doing something to give back, but how you gonna make bread off this? And so that's where like I literally sat down and thought about like all the different avenues, started doing research, and I was like, okay, hey, if I'm getting introduced to all these successful people, like what are the things and the services and the problems that they're having? And that's where like the talent thing came to mind first.
Okay.
It's like at this point I had been an engineer for like 10 years, worked at Fortune 100 companies, worked in research. Like I can find you a good engineer. Like a good engineer knows what another good engineer looks like. Just like a good keynote speaker is going to know what another good keynote speaker looks like. And so the idea was, okay, hey, let me leverage my experience as an engineer. Let me leverage the network that I'm creating, figure out what the problems are that these people are, the guests that I'm having on the show, what are the problems that they're struggling with, and how can I kind of fill that gap? And then I just kind of actually shot my shot. And so I started off, moonlighting at a recruiting agency here in Houston. It was just something I did like just on the side, just contingency recruiting. And long story short, like that wasn't really panning out. I was like, why don't I just do this on my own? I can get a contract. So asked my homegirl, she was a lawyer, Ryan, she did my contract. I sent it to, I had to get my client. So that's where I leveraged the network I built in the co-working space. They connected the dots and then negotiated a contract, all that good stuff, placed a candidate. But in terms of big picture, to kind of get to the question you were asking at, now I'm at the point where like, okay, hey, I've figured out quite a bit. I still have more to learn on both the entertainment, media, podcasting side, but then also on the recruiting side. But now, okay, hey, what can I build that's a sustainable business model that can be like replicated? And so it's only one of me, but I love sharing stories, telling stories. There's a few different industries that I've kind of identified that, hey, I really want to learn more about this area, solve problems in this area. And leadership was one of the first things to come to mind because it's so impactful to every single person at every single organization. Like if your leadership is bad, that's going to impact every single person in the organization. You can have a bad engineer and that may affect that group and it may ultimately affect the end product, but you have under engineers in that group that can kind of cover and pick up the slack. But if you have bad leadership, even if it's just an immediate manager, that's going to affect that whole team. And so for something that's so impactful, plus the fact that millennials and Gen Zs, I'm 35 now, so your boy getting up there, but still young. But looking at, okay, hey, we have different perspectives on what leadership looks like and what our workplace relationships look like. I just wanted to see, okay, hey, how is this transition happening? I look at it like as a relay. The baby boomers, they like, yo, we getting out. My dad's retiring. He like, look, I'm handing it off to the next person. That's that Gen Xer. But now you gotta hand that baton off between the Gen Xers and the millennials and the Gen Z. And where are the gaps? Like, where are we talking at each other? Where are we miscommunicating? Where are we missing the mark from one angle or the other? And so that's where I felt like, hey, having you on the show with your personal leadership experience, but then also with your leadership network, I thought, hey, you'd be a great person to kind of bring into the fold, help me build out this podcast around leadership. And my ultimate goal is to build out a full network with other shows around other industries or other sectors that I'm passionate about as well.
Yeah. No, that's dope. And of course, I think leadership, the thing that I can appreciate about conversations around leadership is like what you said, it's applicable to kind of wherever you are in life.
Yeah.
Both those who I call like your corporate climbers, the 9-to-5ers, or you have the builders, the ones who are kind of entrepreneurial and they're building their own thing. And those leadership skill sets and also the leadership mindset. Like I had a leadership mindset before I knew how leadership was applicable in corporate America, right? Just for many of us, it might have been like in high school, right? Like a student body president, which I was student body president. Actually, 3 years, because my freshman year, somebody else got voted. They didn't do a good job. And then that's when they brought me in.
I'm not surprised at all that you held that title.
And during that time, when the other person was the president, I was still the president.
So doing the job.
I was doing it anyways.
Mm.
I wasn't like overworking myself. I said, I got you. What we trying to get done? How we getting it done? What we doing this time? We got to win this hall decorating contest. Have you talked to so-and-so and so-and-so? Let's talk to so-and-so and so-and-so because we had to win the hall decorating contest as freshmen, you know?
Yeah.
So anyways, leadership is applicable everywhere. And I also feel that because it's evolving from generation to generation, and I also believe that it's evolving just society-wise, right? It's evolving as humans evolve, right? Leadership, 300 years ago looked different than what it looks like now because of industry and survival.
Yeah.
So because all of those elements are constantly evolving, and now we're really bringing the human back into leadership when it comes to authenticity and values and integrity, these type of concepts that are constantly used to define a good leader, we have to continuously reassess it, but also invite, perspective on top of perspective so that we can all start to form our own definition of what it is for ourselves and how it might be effective for where I am and the work that I'm doing.
Nice.
So you can have leadership conversations all day.
I love it.
And we started having these conversations, I think, maybe you at first got on my calendar. Was it last year or did we not start really getting on the calendar until like January this year?
It was January this year. So quick story on how that happened was like Christmas time. I was like, look, I got to do something. And my baby girl was on the way, Gabby.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, look, I got to start making some happen. Like we getting real now. Like if I want to have the type of life that I want to have, like I got to make some things happen. And long story short, I was like, okay, we got to do this. Like, let me figure out a way to like make this super easy for you. And like, I'll take the first step. I'll make it easy for you. If you say yes, I know you all in. You the type of person you gonna go.
Yeah,
so,
I'm 0 to 100 real quick.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I recorded a message for you on Video Ask. I like that because like instead of doing meetings, you can just record a video, say what you're trying to say, have the person respond either in text, voice, or video.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was like, look, I'm trying to do this show. Want to have it, bridge the gap, millennials, Gen Z with Gen X and baby boomers, talk about leadership, have great guests on. You're going to be the host. Send it to you. I was like, what you think? Let's do it. So when do I need to show up? Tell me what guests you want. I know so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. Like, come on, Drew, I got you. Like, well, all right. So we need to, just like you were talking about a student body president, you went right back to that mode. You were like, all right, what we got to do about this? Right. And then every time we hop on a call to plan for this, you be like, all right, so when this thing happening? Because I'm trying to tell people, I'm ready to tell people that I got a podcast. They're like, all right, what we going to do? When it's going to launch? So you going to keep my ass honest, if nothing else. Like, you going to make sure it get done. So I appreciate that. But that's kind of the origin of like a little bit behind the scenes. And then we've been, sharing notes and talking about guests and who we think would be a good fit and all that. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really powerful tool. Number one, for the audience that watch it, like, the people that are going to be on this first season, but then even to come after that, like, I think people are really going to be excited and be like, oh my God, like, y'all able to get so-and-so and so-and-so, and they shared this that they never shared, or I never even heard that before. Yeah. Like all these different perspectives and things like that. I think they're really going to get a lot of value out of it. But then also, like, selfishly, if I'm being honest, like, podcasting is like, for me, been like a really great, like, personal development, career development tool. And like, just in seeing like how my communication skills have grown over the time, my comfort level has grown, my confidence has grown in terms of communication. I'm looking forward to seeing, okay, hey, a year from now, like, what do I look like? What does the content look like? Like, the equipment and stuff is great now. It's going to be at another level in the future. Like, the questions, the guests, all that. I look forward to seeing all that growth.
Yeah. And, they always talk about like how, well, I'm not going to say they, but I've heard when there's an idea that's planted inside of you that comes out, a desire where you're like, I want to make this, create this, build this, and do this, that there was probably someone somewhere else that you don't know, or perhaps in this case that you do know, that is asking and praying for the thing that you're about to do, create,
100%.
Whatever. And so it's imperative that you get to action on those things that come out of you. Like if you feel called to do it, if you're inspired to do it, then do it because it's probably someone's answered prayer. And for me, that's exactly what this is. So now with your gentle persistence over the years of, so when you doing a podcast, what you saying? We've even talked about podcast ideas, and I'll be like, I'm gonna get there. I think it was at the end of last year at some point. I'm still kind of hazy, but towards the end of last year, I know definitely in January, by the time I got to January, I made it very clear as to what my goals were for this year.
I just remembered your birthday.
Yeah.
So we talked, I think we might have talked just before or just after your birthday.
Yeah.
That's when I first was like, hey, I got this idea.
Yeah.
And you were like, I've been praying for this.
Yeah. I want to say that we might have had a brief conversation, or you might have prospected a little bit, maybe even via text message. We got to go back and look at the receipts, but maybe before my birthday, because something in me towards the end of last year was like, I think, or it might have been just in January. It might have been just in January. I was like, I'm gonna launch a podcast, but I didn't know at that time what our partnership or collaboration was going to look like or how it was going to unfold. But it was enough for me to say, Drew and I are about to do something, and it's going to be able to get the momentum going, in the same way that you were talking about that relay. You start off with one, you move to something else, but it ultimately helps you finish the race of whatever it is that you were trying to accomplish. So I put that on my goal list. I was like, I'm going to launch a podcast, because then I was also thinking, oh, this birthday was dope. I debuted a keynote. What am I do for my next birthday? I said, maybe I'll have a live recording of my podcast, rent out another theater, and tell people to pull up just like I did the last time. And then it's the launch of the podcast. So what I said is I want to launch the podcast at least by the end of this year. Before then, I said, well, maybe I'll guest appearance, however many, 33 podcasts. I'll just join other people's podcasts. But I knew that I wanted to be some type of traction this year towards, so that the next time we talked, it's not like, well, what you doing? No, I'm doing. Now I can say I have a podcast, and, I'm about to run it up.
I believe that. I know
we talked about it yesterday.
I know. Look, you put my ass on the spot, but I knew you were going to do it too. I was like, hey, I'm all for it. I was like, I'm just waiting on her to say, hey, I'm about to shout this out.
Right. We about to start a podcast. There go Drew. And then I was like, he heavy in the podcasting game. You know what I'm saying? If you're trying to put out a podcast, holler at him. He got the back end for the production or whatnot.
Hey,
I don't
look.
know what's going to come out of all of that. But.
Nah, I know. But then look, as soon as you start, you didn't even finish what you was saying. Somebody started walking up. Hey, so I got a friend. He's doing, podcast where he's interviewing different representatives for the state, whatever. I'm like, let's go. Like, what are we talking about?
You can do this $750 a pop right here. Record your episodes.
Let's make it happen.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No, it's aligned, and it's, as me also having the experience as a moderator. I've done so many different fireside chats, and it makes sense for me. It's also with the experience that I have with interviewing executive level, leaders, and really focusing on translating. Because the one thing I can't stand is people just dropping gems and snatching edges with all of this motivational, insightful type stuff.
Yeah.
But let's translate that into what that really mean, though. And what can I put to action? Like, what the F am I supposed to do with that? We can be inspired and motivated, but I also want people to feel, I would say we need to empower people, but we also need to equip people.
Yeah.
And empowering is allowing them to see and hear the journey of these leaders and see themselves in that journey, and feel empowered to say, I can do that too. But it's also about, are you also better equipped? Mm-hmm. And I feel like that the podcasting platform is powerful enough that if you take something that you've learned here, which is, I feel like it's our responsibility to make sure that we highlight and extract what that actionable, what that takeaway is, then you put it to action. Now you're better equipped to be the leader that you're empowered to become. And so it should be able to happen with just one episode. For sure. And then if you're coming back episode after episode, you getting the NBA, something.
Hey man, hey, that's real. And No, I saw it in action today when we did our first interview with Karan. I was like, we didn't do much prep beforehand. Like collectively, we both like took looks at the notes that we came up with and all that. But like I've seen you perform, and I'm like, yo, you good. Like you don't need much. But I'm like, okay, let me see. Like I'm thinking of it like double dutch a little bit. Like
Yeah.
when do I hop in? When she gonna hop in? You navigated that like seamlessly. But even there were a couple instances where like the guest says something. I'm like, but I need you to go like one layer deeper.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, let me. But you like, wait, let me. And like
Yeah.
we on the
We
same
one more.
alignment automatically in terms of like extracting that value. Like
Because leaders don't always know how to do that either.
yeah.
Like they're not always thinking about it. And sometimes they could be saying something and not even realize the value of what they said. They could say that, not know the value, or no, they could say something, one, not know the value. They could say something, two, know the value, but three, not know how to instruct on the value.
Okay.
They're sharing the value. These are the benefits, but then there's still an instruction to get to the benefit.
Yeah.
Like you don't just get to the benefit. There's in the sales world, or like when you're working with product, there's like the feature, there's the advantage, and then there's the benefit of dynamic radar cruise control. And you can tell a consumer that this is great and this is the feature, this is why it's an advantage over other competitors, and these are the benefits. But for that, person who gets into this new car who's never had features like this before, they can't get to the benefit if they don't even know how to activate the dynamic radar cruise control.
True.
So I explained to you the value, but now you have to instruct on how to achieve the value, because if you don't just know the value and get the value, you still have to put practice in, and there are steps to that. And I think when we have our leaders, these executives that come onto the show, I'm going into it identifying the value, even if the leader doesn't see it, reiterating the value, and then creating some type of instruction to the value, so that now it's not just empty. It's not, and that's the difference between feeling good and actually doing something good.
I love that analogy because, and I'm thinking, you got me thinking about CRMs, because I've been looking at a new CRM. And I met with somebody at HubSpot, and they like, oh, we can do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like forwards, backwards, everything. And I'm like, okay, but somebody gonna demo this for me? Because I'm like,
Right.
Where the hell am I learn all this from? And so they're like, oh yeah, we require you to do onboarding. And so having that, like, that's exactly what you made me think of when you're like, okay, yeah, I can do A, B, C, all the way to Z, but here are the things that you need to know. And when you said that, you said something after the interview with Karan that really reiterated a point that he made. So during the podcast conversation we had, he said, I can't remember what the question was. Maybe it was something along the lines of like, what are the actionable steps they can take? And I think he said, listening to the earnings calls. And after we ran out of time, so we didn't get a chance to dig deeper there. But afterwards, off camera, you were telling me, or just kind of tell us a little bit about like what you've learned from your experiences in terms of earnings call and leaders.
And I learned, and now let me tell you, I ain't never worked corporate in a day. Like I ain't never worked corporate.
Learning the rules of the game.
I've been learning it, but so I learned that there's these things called earnings calls, and there are probably other types of company-wide calls that are meant to keep all employees up to date on the direction of the company, whether it's the financial calls, maybe they have like State of the Union calls, or whatever these kind of all calls are. Of the many executives that I've talked to, if I interviewed them, 1 out of 3 of them would always say, get on these earning calls, get on these, whatever these other calls are, because you have to move beyond just being an individual contributor. And so there's a T model that I've also learned probably from one of these executives that I've interviewed. And, when you first start off in your career, you have to establish yourself as to what you're good at. So you do have to have some depth as an individual contributor. Like you have to go deep, be really good at something, and, but there's a point in time in your career where you got to move away from just doing the thing. And then you have to start elevating out of that and going across the top of that T, where you have a greater understanding of what's going on at the organization at a whole. like in all of these different verticals, as they call them, like what's happening over here in the P&L and the marketing and the research and development, what's happening with talent development and retention, what's happening with, a technology, like all of these things all play. There's like a Rubik's Cube.
Mm-hmm.
And the CEO is always trying to play with this Rubik's Cube to keep all the colors on the same side. But if you're only focusing on being one side of the color, you just getting spun around on that Rubik's Cube and don't know what's going on,
Your demonstrations always be having me gone, man.
like I'm just going. So, when you think about how am I, as an individual contributor, an early career professional listening to the show, you're learning, this might not apply to you right now, but you might get into a good practice of getting on that those earnings calls now, so that you can start to shape your brain to have the perspective of a leader, not just the performance of a leader. And really, that's the big difference between a mid-level, employee and a individual contributor, or even a subject matter expert. Because subject matter experts, they might stay in an organization for years, but they are specifically supposed to stay in this down. That's the difference, where you're not quite an IC, but a little bit more elevated. You might have a greater title. You might, like your title, like you're space and leadership, but you're not leading people.
Yeah, technical lead.
Yeah, technical lead, subject matter experts. So you have to be able to come out of that, and it becomes less about your performance, although your performance is still required to be top notch, and it becomes more about your perspective and of the business. And do you have and understand enough about the business to have a valued perspective? Yeah.
No, I think the earlier people adopt that mindset and they start implementing those practices, the better, because it's just like muscle memory after that. Then it's not so much, oh my God, I got to hop on this boring call, and whatever. You start adopting and understanding the language, which is more important than anything, in my opinion. Like being able to understand the language and have these conversations and understand, okay, hey, this is what my supervisor or my VP is saying is important in terms of metrics and what we're trying to accomplish. What I'm doing, how is that aligning with what they want and what they're trying to get accomplished? Yeah. How can I make their life easier? So when I reach out to them, whether I know them or not, I can reach out and be like, okay, hey, doing XYZ, whatever. Yeah. Like, make sure you get in front of them. So I think that's very important.
Yeah. It's almost like the cheat code in a way. You just have to look for where the opportunities are. And sometimes we don't, you have to start allowing yourself to see that the opportunity exists in some boring stuff like a earnings call or whatever, Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm definitely excited.
Me too. I'm like, this is going to be a win. This is going to be a lot of fun. And you know what? I when I started my first podcast, I had a co-host at the time. And then, unfortunately, he had to relocate from Houston to San Antonio. So, we weren't able to continue that partnership. But, after today, I was like, damn, I forgot how much fun it is to, have a co-host.
And I had a co-host. This is random. This is how, and even from my own experiences, I try to extract the value for those who are really looking at how do I position myself more to be seen as a leader, right? And it's how you extract the value from all of the different roles and jobs that you've done in the workplace and even outside of the workplace. Because you mentioned co-host, and for, 11, 12 years, a long time, I had a co-host. I co-hosted a live edutainment show.
You telling me about that?
That traveled the country through auto shows for an automaker. And for 12 years, I would co-host a show. And I had a lot of different co-hosts because depending on the city, I had my main co-host, the ones that for the majors that I co-hosted with. I had another main co-host when I would do State Fair of Texas, which was 21 days I spent with my co-host, and we hosted every single day for 21 days. Dang. Or it was 24 days. And then I would have smaller market co-hosts that I would work with just in smaller markets. And I had to learn how to actively listen. I had to sense. I had to feel. Yeah. I had to think about where their perspective was. I had to, anticipate. I had to learn them. I had to learn how to share a stage.
That's a lot of there's a lot that goes into that, and I didn't realize it until I sat in this seat. But even the questions, like when the guest is talking so often, you're like thinking ahead about the script and what's on the script. But if you just purely focus on that, like you miss great follow-up questions or even pivots in terms of, okay, hey, this is what we had scripted, but he just said or she just said this. Like, I got to ask about that because the audience is going to want to know about it. So that's a great skill set that anybody should get, but you've adopted.
Going off script so that, like as we were moving through those questions, and what I do is like, I know that there's these set of questions that need to be asked. And you might start off with the first one, cool, got it out. You might start off with the second one, and then you start to derail. But I need to know what these questions are, because based off of what that person says, I might be able to swing it more naturally to get to question 7. And then it's a fluid conversation while still being able to get through all the questions, right?
100%.
And so it's like, I forgot to mention to you today that I trust that I'll get through all the questions. If there's a question that we've missed, I'm just waiting to hear what they have to say that connects to that question. Yeah. And then you also have to trust that if the conversation to a certain point doesn't kind of lend a hand to go to that next question, it's not relevant to them anyway.
For sure.
So yes, my co-hosting experience is now coming into play, which is the reason why I say you have to remember the value and extract the value from. When I got done with that show, I was so done with that show. I was like, I'm so done with this show.
Never again.
I'm just so done, right? But then as I marched on and all of the other things that I was doing, I was like, dang, I appreciate that job that I had. Like, that set me up for success.
That's crazy.
And now I'm not afraid to pull back and use that experience to validate me in my current spaces, And that's what articulating your value is. Just because you're at a new job doesn't mean that you still can't go back to your old job and the successes that you got there and talk about how that supports your new thing, So none of that stuff, success does not expire. Wins don't expire. Experience doesn't expire. It's just, is it applicable to what you're doing in the moment?
100%. Hey, I like this setup. Like, we might have to do this like every time we finish up an interview, because I feel like it's going to be like so many different thoughts and ideas that we have.
It's called the after party.
I know.
People party in corporate,
Oh, for sure. The weekend starts, Thursday.
Oh, that's right.
It starts on Thursday.
Oh, yeah, it does. They say that Thursday is technically like the best night to go out.
I believe that.
I can't remember the reasons why they said that, but that's what I heard.
I don't partake like that, but yeah, 'cause I got them little babies, but no, it'd be Thursdays, like the heights, everything. Like
it'd be hot on.
It'd be a lot going on.
Look, I'm on a sabbatical right now. Last time I was on vacation, my ankles started to swell. Cankles.
God, dog.
So I'm gonna have to put the champagne down if I don't want cankles.
Oh Lord, you got a long way to go. You good? You good?
I can't believe it. I was like, oh my gosh, it was my left foot just kind of swollen.
What you did?
Right
you
here.
like twisted it, or you?
No, I just was. So sometimes when, like, for example, even right now, I get done. It's like, oh, I'm done with work, and I'm like. And if I don't have anything else going on, it's like, oh, I'm done with my work. I'm done with my duties. I'm done with my responsibilities.
I did good today.
I'm on vacation.
Yeah.
Even if vacation is only, from now until I go to bed.
Okay.
It's like, so then I put myself in this mode that it's like, I'm going to go on my rooftop. I'm going to, try to do, so I'm on vacation every time I'm free of like responsibilities or duty. Right?
I'm about to adopt that.
And so when I was in Phoenix for that other speaking engagement, it was hot, but they had a pool. Now, I take a swimsuit wherever I go. And I was working with some other facilitators that I knew there. And I said, 2:15, I'm going to be at the pool. And they were going to go to the movies or something. And they were like, oh, no, that sounds better. So then I got a couple of people that I know that I've worked with before. We at the pool. I'm ordering me some drinks. Then we did dinner. But this was like every day for like 5 days because it was a conference. I was at a conference.
You did it right, though.
Man, but when my skin was effed up.
Your body was like, yo,
my
why
body
you do that
was
to me?
like done. I was morphing into a toad.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. I'm looking forward to your stories, because I know you got a lot. Like, this is
I'm
hilarious.
like, so I'm on a break. Don't ask me to go outside.
Too much. Okay.
Chilling.
Hey, but no, I'm gonna adopt that mindset of like on a vacation. Like, cause even like today, I'm done earlier than usual. I got one more meeting, but I'm like, after that, I'm like, yo, what? I did my thing, recorded a bunch of content, sent out some emails, like, a win.
Like I imagine everywhere that I am at being like a resort.
I like that.
You know, then my house just becomes like, even if I decide to watch a little TV, it's like it's just a resort. Like I'm at a resort. I'm on vacation.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
that's about to be dope.
Cool.
How do we close out on things? Like, what do we want that to be?
That's a good question. What do y'all think we should do? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments. You know, I don't, you know, I always just tell people like, hey, appreciate you guys for watching. Stay tuned, like, share, subscribe. Make sure you sign up for the newsletter.
Oh yeah.
The newsletter will be out by the time that this comes out. So make sure you sign up for the newsletter. We'll have to figure out like the call to actions. And then other than that, I'll just say, see you next week.
Peace out.
Peace.